Let's talk about Bloodborne. Let's talk about the chicken shitting game. Don't ask. If Bloodborne comes back, I will shit a chicken. Miyazaki was directly confronted at Summer Games Fest or some shit about a certain Bloodborne game. And his ass started talking. As we know, just to reconcile the information at hand, Miyazaki and a lot of FromSoft folks have gone on record saying that like Bloodborne's their favorite game they've made. And we're like, hey, me too. They love Bloodborne. They absolutely love it. And it seems that Miyazaki is getting to a point where he might, maybe is getting sort of frustrated that Sony isn't doing anything with it. So Miyazaki knows for a fact that FromSoft devs want to put Bloodborne on PC. If I say I want one, I'll get in trouble. But it's nothing I'm opposed to. As I was wrapping up an interview from FromSoft, Miyazaki knew I couldn't walk out of the conference without sitting more than an hour without asking the question. It's been on the front mind for PC gamers during every single major live stream gaming event since Sony started putting it on putting games on Steam. When's Bloodborne on PC? I was obviously not the first person to ask Miyazaki about returning to Bloodborne and making a sequel. Just a few months ago, IGN heard from Software that doesn't own the IP rights, unfortunately, and I've said this in other interviews, it is not my place to talk about Bloodborne specifically, he answered. And he's completely right. It is not FromSoft's place to make announcements about anything Bloodborne. It is not their place to talk about an IP that doesn't belong to them. They made it, right? But they made it with the sweet money checks that Sony gave them. So Sony gets to choose what the hell goes on with Bloodborne. It's all on them. This is the relationship between publisher and developer. For anyone that doesn't understand, the publisher owns the rights to the IP. FromSoft was the ones that developed the IP, obviously, but Sony paid for the entire thing. So they get to choose how it's going to have a future, if it's going to have a future, and who can talk about it. I tried a slightly different approach, making myself the sacrificial lamb. Wes Fenlon, thank you, Wes. You sacrificed your ability to possibly ever talk to Miyazaki ever again for the good of the people. I said I'd get in trouble if I didn't ask the question. FromSoft doesn't own Bloodborne, but there are millions of PC gamers out there holding on to hope. I said, would he, Miyazaki-san himself, personally like to see Bloodborne come to PC someday? This got a laugh from the FromSoft crew and a genuine answer. Here we go. Every belt and buckle. The helmet's coming on. I know for a fact these guys want a Bloodborne PC port. Miyazaki said, referring to the producer and interpreter at the conference table near him. If I say I want one, I'll get in trouble as well. But it's nothing I'm opposed to. I thought that would be the end of the topic, but Miyazaki went on to elaborate. Oh my God. Obviously, as one of the creators of Bloodborne, my personal, pure, honest opinion is I love more players to be able to enjoy it, especially as a game that is now coming of age. One of those games of the past that gets lost on older hardware. I think any game like that, it'd be nice to have an opportunity for more players to be able to experience that and relive the relic of the past. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's definitely not something I'd be opposed to. So you heard it here. Miyazaki wants Bloodborne on PC. FromSoft wants Bloodborne on PC. So what's Sony gonna do about it? From what I understand, what I heard earlier today from some friends is that Sony is visiting every single person that read this article, and they have the Men in Black laser gun for your eyes. They apparently made it, and I think they stuck it into the PSVR 2. So if Sony shows up to your door and they ask you to test out the PSVR 2 and they like neuralize you through the PSVR 2, politely decline. Politely to decline that don't neuralize me through a PSVR 2, please, Sony. Anyway, is this actual news? No. It's not actual news. But again, this is why my gift sub bets and the things that I've mentioned about Bloodborne showing up at some of these things are so high in gift subs. They are so ridiculously high because Sony has almost gone out of their way to avoid this shit for now what is going on to be like 10 years or some shit. Relatively speaking, I'm not going to put gift sub bets on something that is likely to happen related to Bloodborne. There's a good reason. If any Sony representative even mentions the word Bloodborne, they all know. Don't get me wrong. Like all of Sony first-party producers, everybody knows that if they even mention the words Bloodborne in any way from an official representative, they're toast. Everyone's going to be paying attention to exactly what they say. They're going to be picking apart every single thing they say. So what happens? The fan base for Bloodborne is so feverishly delirious for anything Bloodborne, right? At this point, they don't say shit. Everybody at Sony is afraid to say anything. They don't even talk about liking Bloodborne. The fan base is ravenous. They've they've entered a state of frenzy. So that's why you never hear anything about it, right? Until something officially happens. It be how it do. It is very interesting that Miyazaki would not respond with this with a no comment. Within this conversation is about Sony. You know, that's the news from this, from the previous one and from this when he was talking about Bloodborne or addressed from the press about Bloodborne. The conversation boils down to Sony. I can't talk about this right now. I'm going to get in trouble if I mention anything about this. Feels like he's doing what he should to get the targeting reticles aimed at the right people. But I don't mean that in a dangerous, violent way. I mean that the Bloodborne gun that is like flintlock loaded and people are aiming that at Miyazaki and Miyazaki's like, listen guys, I want it just as much as you do. Aim your gun over there. Aim your crazy Bloodborne blunderbuss in this direction. To be real, sometimes this stuff in the industry needs to happen. This makes Sony seem painfully weird about Bloodborne. Almost look like they hate Bloodborne fans. We can't stand them. And I've been saying this for years. Sony hates Bloodborne fans. They hate you. They can't stand how much you like their shit. They freaking hate it. Anyway, jokes aside, it is cool to see Miyazaki talking about Bloodborne. This is the most they have talked about Bloodborne and literally put Bloodborne references and shit since Deracine, dude. And Deracine was 2017. For God's sake, dude. And for anybody that doesn't remember, Deracine was a PlayStation VR 1 game made by FromSoft, and it had a ton of Bloodborne references in it. It had like weird Bloodborne references all over the place in the game that were little Easter eggs. So people were thinking that that was like hints at there being more Bloodborne shit. I think the idea is that they would like to, but you know, this didn't eventually happen. I'll take anything, man. If we get a PlayStation showcase later this year, that is 500 gift subs. If somebody from Sony in some way, any official representative from Sony, they say the words Bloodborne, 500 gift subs. Doesn't matter. If it's like official games, it's way more. But to be real, if somebody actually working there says that shit, says the name of the game in some way, it's legit 500 gift subs. That's how little of a chance it is, and that is how much. All I gotta say is at the end of this thing, I hurt. I hurt. It hurts. I love the game. I literally bought an ancient firmware PS5 to play the game in 60 FPS. I hurt, chat. All I want to do is New Game Plus and reallocate my stats. That's all I want. I've played through this shit like 10 times. I hurt. At least hearing from the people that made the thing themselves and how much they love it makes it hurt a little bit less.